My name is Steve Klein, and this is my video recording for my Chapter 2 assignment in talking about how I use game-based learning. And a couple things I want to talk about. Talk about some pros and cons to either game-based learning or using technology in your classroom. I'm going to talk about some of the research that I found that I wrote in my paper, and then I'm going to explain kind of how I use technology in my room. I'm very lucky in that here at the Bellevue Public Schools, we have what we call an iPad Academy, and I happened to apply for it and went through the process to get into that group. So I'm lucky that I'm one of 4 people in our building at Bellevue West and one of about 55 to 60 people in the Bellevue Public Schools that get an iPad cart. So I'm lucky in that I get one class period every day where my kids get to take iPads, and we essentially run the classroom through our iPads, and they're able to take them home. So we're kind of a test phase of that whole thing. This is my second year with doing that, and a couple of things that I'm going to talk about in terms of what we use on our iPads. We're a Google school, so we use a ton of Google things. We use Google Mail. Each student here at Bellevue West and the Bellevue Public Schools has a Gmail account of their own that we use every day, and they check it every day and all those things. We also use Google Drive, we use Google Docs, we use Google Spreadsheets. We use all those types of things as well in class to manipulate things and do our work in terms of the workflow from student to teacher and teacher to student, all of those types of things as well. In terms of some of the apps that I have some of my kids use, we use GeoGebra quite a bit in our geometry classes, a ton to design different shapes and talk about different shapes and different parts of shapes and things like that. We use Explain Everything and Notability. My class is kind of split half and half in terms of half my kids use Notability and they like that, half my kids use Explain Everything and they like that. And what we'll do is we'll upload some documents on there. It's essentially a whiteboard for them. And then a lot of times what I'll have them do is create a voice recording of and explain their problems and how they came up with their answers and the process to how they got that to work. That's one of the main things that I have them do for practice with their iPad. We also do a little bit of blogging. This year I haven't quite gotten into it as much as I did last year. Last year we did quite a bit, and students were able to write their thoughts, and maybe some days I'd give them a topic, some days I'd just let them free write. And there were a couple of them last year where we sent them out on Twitter and had some people respond to their posts, and I think a lot of my kids were kind of surprised that people actually read their posts and responded to them. I'm not quite ready for the group I have right now to do that. I got kind of a group that's kind of immature with it, so we're still kind of learning and understanding what things you can and can't do with the technology and those types of things. But I'm planning on getting to that here towards the middle to end of second semester and do a little bit of blogging and getting them used to writing their thoughts out and getting some reflections from them on different topics in terms of math. Some of the pros and cons that I came up with, they can, in terms of pros, they can access it anywhere, anytime they want. As long as they have either an iPhone or their iPad with them, as long as they have a Wi-Fi signal of some kind, they can access any information from class at any time. Yes, that sounds great. That sounds great, but it's not necessarily great all the time. There are glitches almost every other day, and one thing I've had to learn is I've had to learn to be really, really patient and understand that there's going to be times where things aren't going well. And for me, that's kind of a challenge because I'm one of those people who, I'll go through things 4 or 5 times and make sure, okay, hey, we got this set up, we're good, and we'll get going, and it doesn't work, and so it's easy to get frustrated with it. And the kids get frustrated too, but they've done a pretty good job of understanding that, it's going to take a little time sometimes, and sometimes not everything works. They have access in terms of email. I do a lot of communication through email with our students, especially along with parents. But we do a lot of it. I every day I also flip my classroom as well. This is the first full year that I've done a full flip where I flip every single lesson. So what they do is they go home, they watch a video over my lesson, and then they have a questionnaire they have to fill out. And both of those things are sent to their student email. They have to fill that out when they get done watching the video, and it's essentially just a check for understanding. I'll ask them 4 or 5 questions from the notes, or I may ask them to complete an example, come up with an answer by the time they come to class the next day, and things like that. And then that way they can also ask a question on that document as well. Some other pros, it's available for students to work at their own pace. The nice thing is having the iPads, and also being that I flip my classroom, eventually I plan to completely get to where you're working at your own pace, and I'll set a date and say, okay, 25 days from now is our test. You have to have these lessons done, these activities done by the time we get there. And you're essentially doing it at your own pace. That's what I'm planning to get to eventually. I'm not quite there yet because I'm still implementing the basics of number one, how to use the iPad, those types of things as well. One last pro that I have is it's active engagement. I mean, the kids are actively working every day in my classroom on their iPad. I won't say that every kid likes it. You have some of your kids who would just die to go back to pen and paper. Some kids really like it, but there are others that don't. And the one thing that, in terms of active engagement, and I can also go to this as a con, is that it doesn't fix everything. Technology doesn't fix everything. Technology is just another way to learn the material, or another tool to use to maybe see it a different way. It's not going to fix the problem with a student not doing homework. I still have kids every day who don't turn in homework like they're supposed to, or get activities done like they're supposed to. That doesn't fix the problem. That's one of the things I've really had to learn, in that, you think going in, oh, this is going to be awesome. Kids are all going to love this. They're all going to do it. And it's no different than if I had a worksheet sometimes. Kids are still kids, and they're not necessarily always going to do those activities or assignments. Another con is sometimes we don't get, in terms of depth of learning, we maybe don't go as deep as we probably could, just simply because I don't want to create a 25-minute video. Most of my videos are 5 to 15 minutes long, so we don't get really too far in depth. That's something that you put on them, and that's their responsibility, is to get in depth. And the one thing, again, that I found so far is some kids are very good at that, some kids are not. Some kids are not mature enough to handle it quite yet, so they struggle. And getting them to understand that, hey, this is your grade, this is your responsibility to get this done and make sure that it's done on time. So that I've kind of explained how I use it. The last thing I want to talk about is some of the research that I found. And the research that I found has gone both ways. Some say technology is great. Some say, well, technology is not good because it's not doing this and that. Again, whatever you find that's good technology-wise, you can find just as much that's going to go against it. And it goes both ways. To me, in my opinion, it's all about what you want to do with it, and how much time and effort you want to put into things. If you want to put that in there, you're going to make a very good lesson, and majority of your kids are going to be actively engaged, and I think they're going to probably enjoy it. Okay. This concludes my video talking about my technology in my school, and I'm very interested and excited to hear what other schools have.